As a parent, there's nothing more personal than your child's growth and development. But what do you do when you start having questions that feel, well, just too big and complex to answer on your own? Today, we're going to break down the world of pediatric neurology and give you a clear, straightforward guide for this journey.
It almost always starts with this one question, right? It's that quiet concern you might have, maybe just a little nagging feeling. Is my child hitting their milestones? Is this behavior what you'd call typical? This question, this feeling, it's really the heart of where this journey begins for so many families.
And hey, feeling worried or uncertain? That is completely 100% normal. Voicing that concern isn't just brave, it's actually the most important first step you can take toward getting some real clarity, both for your child and for you.
Okay, so let's dive right in. We're going to start with the basics to make sure we've got a really solid foundation. First things first, what are we even talking about when we say pediatric neurology?
To put it simply, pediatric neurology is all about a child's developing nervous system. I want you to think of it like the body's master control system. The brain, the spinal cord, all the nerves, and even the muscles. And because a child's brain is just constantly growing and changing, this specialty is absolutely crucial for any issues that pop up during that critical time, all the way from when they're a tiny infant to their teenage years. So, what kinds of things actually fall under this big umbrella? You might be surprised. The range is actually pretty broad, so let's break it down into a couple of key areas to make it easier to understand. So this first group includes things that often show up in a child's everyday life. We're talking about conditions like ADHD, where focus can be a real challenge, or autism spectrum disorders, which can affect how a child interacts with the world. But it also includes things like speech delays or even motor tics. A pediatric neurologist's job is to look beyond just the behaviors, to really understand the why, the underlying neurological factors at play. And then you've got conditions that have more obvious physical symptoms. This includes the things a lot of people think of when they hear neurology, like childhood epilepsy or cerebral palsy. But it also covers issues you might not immediately connect to the brain, like really bad chronic migraines, muscular dystrophy, or even sleep disorders. It just goes to show you how wide-ranging this field really is. I know, looking at those lists can feel a little overwhelming, but the good news is that the path to getting answers isn't some big mystery. It's actually a really clear, structured journey. So let's walk through exactly how it works. Getting clarity really comes down to these 3 key steps. First up, step 1, evaluation. This is where your story, your observations, everything you've noticed is so important. If we need more info, we move to step 2, testing, which gives us a much deeper look at what's going on. And all of that work leads us to the goal, step 3, a real diagnosis and a clear, customized care plan, a roadmap to help your child thrive. So what does advanced testing even mean? Let's take a look. A video EEG, for example, is kind of like listening in on the brain's electrical conversations. It helps us pinpoint exactly where seizures might be coming from. Then there's something called a TOVA test. It's a computer-based assessment that gives us objective data on attention and impulse control. It basically takes the guesswork out of it. These tools are what turn a parent's concern into concrete, actionable information. But finding the right diagnosis, that's only half the story. The other part, which is every bit as important, is the team of people who are going to walk alongside your family through this whole process. And this quote, this really gets to the heart of the philosophy. It's not just about treating a condition, it's about caring for a child, and that child is part of a family. The whole goal is to build a partnership, to create a plan that fits not just your child's unique needs, but your family's life too. So what does that partnership actually look like in the real world? Well, on one hand, it means you get access to world-class knowledge. But just as important, it means you get a team that actually talks to each other. Neurologists, psychologists, therapists, everyone is working together. For you, that translates to way less stress and a single, unified approach for your child's care. And that support system goes way beyond the clinic doors. It means empowering your family with practical skills, like seizure first aid training. It means working directly with your child's school to make sure they have everything they need to succeed there. It's all about building a complete circle of support that's there for the long haul. Okay, so we've covered a lot. With all of this in mind, where do you go from here? Let's get really practical and focus on the next steps by answering some of the most common questions that parents have. This is it. This is probably the biggest question on everyone's mind. You're with your child every single day, so what specific signs should really make you think, okay, maybe it's time to get an evaluation? Here's the most important takeaway. Trust your gut. If you notice any of these signs, getting an expert opinion is never a bad idea. This could be something like a seizure, even one that happens with a fever. Or maybe it's delays in those big milestones, like walking or talking. It also includes things like frequent, really bad headaches, muscle weakness, or if they're having major struggles with learning or behavior at school. When in doubt, checking it out early is always the right move.
And this next question, it's a big one. It's really about hope, about what the future looks like. It's a question about outcomes, and the answer is both realistic and, I think, very optimistic. Look, the truth is, some conditions are outgrown, and others do require ongoing management. But the single most important factor, time and time again, is early intervention. Getting the right support team and a dedicated plan in place as early as possible makes a world of difference in a child's ability to adapt, to learn, and to truly succeed.
And really, in the end, it all boils down to this one simple thing. Whether the challenge is big or small, the goal is always the same: to understand your child's unique brain and give them every tool and all the support they need to unlock their very brightest future. The journey might start with a question, but it leads to a path filled with potential.